Hi guys, Rhi here. Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Rhi. Thank you so much for joining me again. So today, as I kind of get comfortable on my, very squeaky chair, that is annoying. I want to discuss something with you that I wouldn't normally talk about. I normally have a bit of a policy and I want to discuss a trolling comment. So my usual policy with trolling comments is something I learnt quite some time ago from a friend of mine, Katie, from what Katie said. I think I've talked about this before. And she said that you wouldn't let people into your home. They kept being rude and insulting you and keep inviting them back. And your little corner of the internet, where whatever that looks like for you, whether it's your personal Facebook page, you use Instagram, or whether you do something like I do and you actually, you have YouTube channels, podcasts, whatever. That's your little corner. That's like your home and your little corner of the internet. And you're not obliged to let people back in who are being rude and offensive. So don't engage with them, block and delete. And normally I do feel that bringing to the forefront and discussing these things openly maybe gives these people the attention they want, so isn't helpful. However, this particular comment brought up some stuff that I think so many people in my community, especially mums, parents of children with additional needs. And I think this particular comment brought up some stuff that people deal with on a day-to-day basis, not just because they have a YouTube channel and get trolling comments. So because I felt that this was a little more wide-reaching, perhaps, than some of the comments, I just felt it was really important to discuss this because I know actually, because I discussed this yesterday on my Instagram, on my main Mummy of 4 Instagram, I know this has stirred up a lot of feelings in a lot of people. So the comment was very flippant, because obviously if you see my main channel, you know I talk about hacks and things. Rhi's best hack, pretend that your kids have autism so that she doesn't have to queue. So obviously I'm not pretending that my children have autism. So I'm not, this is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous comment because my children have been through assessments. I would not put my children through those assessments if I did not have concerns. And the medical professionals in those clinical settings would not have given a diagnosis to any child that didn't require one. This stuff goes without saying. So this isn't, the comment in itself is ridiculous. So it's not about that. I'm not offended that I'm being accused of pretending. It's just someone not knowing the whole story. But I think this is the bit that we keep coming back to, and this is the bit that really resonated with a lot of people when I talked about it on stories. And I think we have to realise that just because people look a certain way and we make a certain judgment from what we see, from that little snapshot of what we see about someone, it doesn't make our assumptions true. So I get comments saying, oh, your children don't look autistic, or they don't seem to struggle, or they don't look like they have autism, which through the lens of, I guess, my camera of what I show, I guess I see why people, I understand why people would think that. I understand because they have not seen any of the challenges that my children face, largely because I've chosen not to show their struggles and their challenges in real time. So I wouldn't show a video of them struggling or being challenged or melting down. And I have to be careful about how I talk about my children and their challenges online, especially because obviously I have in the back of my mind, and I talked about this in a previous episode actually, about how autism is, or any special needs children are discussed specifically online. But I have this in the back of my mind that anything that I do say online, they may watch now or in the future. And I understand that. So I would not want to put anything out that really highlighted any very personal details or any specific challenges. Normally, if I've had a challenging day, we've had challenging meltdowns, I will say I have dealt with meltdowns, not X child did YZ, because there's got to be an element of respecting their privacy. So yes, I understand that when you look at my children and you look at them in the parks and things, because I think you probably see more of my children if you watch my Disney channel than you do my main channel, unless it's Christmas, birthdays, days out, or they're kind of in the background while I'm cleaning. My children don't feature as much on my main channel anymore, largely because I try and work while they're in school and I try and be more present when they're home. So yes, if you see them in the Disney parks and they seem really happy, it's because in that moment they are. They absolutely are happy. They're in the most magical place on earth. They're happy. Do they still struggle with certain elements of the day? Do I choose to film and show those elements in my vlogs? No, that would not be appropriate. And quite frankly, if I did choose to film and show those elements in my vlogs, I would get trolled for that too, because people wouldn't like that. So a few things that people brought up, actually some really helpful people on Instagram. And I've got to say, I've got to take this opportunity to thank all those lovely people. I was inundated yesterday with messages following that comment. Just wonderful, beautiful human beings saying, look, we're in this together. I get it. I deal with this stuff. And this is why I'm talking about it. This is what I'm going to get to. But parents saying, I deal with this stuff all the time. I deal with this judgmental attitude, this, your kids don't look this way. They don't seem, people just not understanding. So this is what we're going to get into today. This is what we're going to talk about. But the outpouring of just amazing support yesterday. If you're one of those beautiful humans, I just want to thank you, because I can't tell you how much that means to me. It's very easy to get up in your head when you're just sitting here. I'm here on my own, talking into my little microphone, talking to my camera, and basically talking to myself. And it's nice to know there are genuine, lovely human beings on the other side, listening to this, watching this. And apparently it's making a big difference to those people. And that means so much. So for every one of you that sent me one of those lovely messages, thank you. They really keep me going and make me think, okay, when I'm having those moments of doubt, yes, I am doing some good and trying to put some good out into the world, which is all I'm attempting to do. So people judge as a snapshot. Okay, so this doesn't just go for, yes, my children online. And what you've got to remember, if you're watching a few minutes or a few seconds of Instagram stories, you're watching a few minutes in a vlog, even if you're watching a vlog that is an hour long out of a day, that is still only an hour. And not all of that is pointed at the children. A lot of it's rides and food and all the things. That is such a tiny snapshot. When you are watching someone's vlogs, life online, if they're doing a good job of filming and editing, you will feel like you know everything about them. You will feel like you know their whole lives. But you can't possibly, because it is just a small snapshot. And what people are choosing to share or choosing not to share can be for different reasons. So if we take it back away from YouTube and more into like personal social media. Social media is everyone's highlight reel. So all those people you see on Facebook you went to school with, they're just putting their highlights on the social media. Maybe it's because they want people to think of them in a certain way, or maybe because there's some personal things they can't share. Maybe when they are struggling with something, maybe they're having troubles in their marriage or struggling with getting a child assessed for something or whatever it might be, it's not necessarily appropriate to air those things on Facebook. So when you only see beautiful photographs of a lovely breakfast they went for and a lovely walk they went on, all those things, you don't see what else is going on behind the camera. So just because everyone's posting a highlight reel doesn't mean those people's lives are perfect and you're like, ugh, why are those lives perfect? But also, so there's a few elements of this. There's judging people who from what you see online, and are you judging because perhaps it's making you feel a bit insecure, a bit whatever, but also having to look at people's lives on social media through a lens of understanding it's a highlight reel and not feeling that kind of pressure, like, why does everyone's life seem perfect other than mine? Why is my life difficult? Why am I struggling with things? I'm going to let you in on a secret. Everyone's struggling with something, okay? Everyone is struggling with something. It's just because they cannot or choose not to share it with you doesn't mean it's not there. So if you're struggling with something, it's a bit of a tangent now. If you're struggling with something, you're not alone, okay? Big internet hugs, big podcast high fives, big, we are all going through something. So if you're struggling with something, you're not on your own. So slight tangent there. But when we look at someone and think, oh, they, I guess naturally you make assumptions about people, don't you? You have an interaction with someone at the school gates, you see their snapshots on social media, and your brain, without consciously thinking about it, makes a snapshot it collates the information and makes assumptions about the information based on the information we have about that person. Now, when people do this on a subconscious level. I think that's a pretty natural thing to do. But I think when it becomes problematic is when people take it that one step further then and think, oh, so that child doesn't look this way, or doesn't, when people don't have the understanding and the filter then, and inappropriate, hurtful comments come out. So this can come from largely, I think, a lack of understanding. So this is something I was guilty of, I suppose is the right way to put it. I don't know. Many years ago, my understanding of autism is not what it is today. So when I was a teenager, I only knew of one individual with autism who had very, very severe needs, was nonverbal. So that's what I thought autism was. So I was guilty then of lack of understanding. I was a teenager. It's not that I was making comments or anything, because I wasn't. But that's what I thought autism was. So when my children presented with challenges and difficulties, initially I didn't think that my version of what I thought autism was aligned with those difficulties my children were facing. So I didn't think for a second it could have been autism. I can't remember actually the first time I thought, maybe there's autism here. I can't remember what actual moment that was. I can't remember what information came to me. I wonder why that is. I wonder why I can't remember that beginning bit. But I know there was a time before where I thought autism is this version of what I thought it was, which is not what it is. Obviously, it's a spectrum. It's everything from, like, it can be that nonverbal person who does not communicate with anyone at all, but it can be someone that outwardly appears to have no difficulties or struggles, yet it does. So I can't remember at what time it went from the understanding I used to have to beginning to have information. Someone must have brought it up with me, or I must have seen something online and thought, oh, maybe there's something going on here. But interesting, isn't that I can't remember what that was. I guess it was quite a long time ago. Or maybe, I don't know. In fact, if you're listening on the podcast, you can't comment, so apologies for this. But if you are watching on YouTube, do let me know down in the comments. If you're a parent of a child with additional needs, do you remember, you don't have to share it if you want to, by all means, because there's a lovely community in the comments of these videos, but you don't have to tell me what the moment was or what the information was unless you feel comfortable sharing. But do you remember the time that you thought, oh, this challenge that ultimately your child now has, do you remember the time where that first occurred to you that might be the case? Interesting, because it just occurred to me I don't. Anyway, so I think we can all be guilty at some point of not being educated in a certain thing, because obviously we're born not knowing anything at all, and eventually we become more educated in certain things. Some things we choose to educate ourselves in, some things we come across through friends, family, jobs, whatever, and the information is brought to us. So yes, we're all guilty of not being educated at some point. So I guess most of the comments or the thoughts or the well-meaning comments you get as a parent of a child with additional needs, like, oh, they don't seem to have autism, or just comes from a massive lack of understanding. Because if they think autism is only that nonverbal or whatever version of autism that they've seen, and that doesn't match up with what they've seen in your child in that short window that they've met them, then some people choose to word vomit the words, well, that person doesn't seem like they have autism. Is it helpful? No. But I think it is coming from just a genuine lack of understanding. Now, the trolling element, when you choose to comment something like that on someone's post on the internet, I think is taken to a whole other level. Although it is true that we can have trolls in real life. I do know one or two in my actual real life. Not that I have continued problems with, but people that I give a wide berth just because their nature. Now, I don't especially follow or watch the videos or anything, but I do remember a long time ago I watched a video podcast episode where the Saucony Jolies, who are a big, I think they used to do daily vlogs, I'm not sure they do anymore, but they're a big YouTube channel, a family channel, and they used to have horrendous trolling. And they did an interview with, I think the video was called something like Interview with Our Biggest Troll. So if you search on YouTube, Saucony Jolie's Interview with Our Biggest Troll, if I remember, I will link the video down below if I can find it. And they did this interview with our biggest troll, and she was like a reformed troll. So she hadn't trolled them recently. And she came on their podcast, which I thought was really brave, to explain her thought process. Sorry, I'm just going to take a sip of my drink while I gather my thoughts. So she came onto their podcast, and it was quite a while ago, so you'll have to watch it for the exact details. But she said that she was going on some trolling website, some sort of forum that I don't think exists anymore, but similar things do. And she was going onto this website, and it was sort of like Facebook for trolls, from what I could gather. And you know the equivalent of like when you post a picture and you've got new hair and everyone's like, oh, you look amazing. And you get that kind of like, oh, thank you. Or you post a picture of your new baby and everyone's like, congratulations. And it's like, oh, thank you so much. Or everyone wishes you happy birthday or something. I think it was like, she felt like it was like that. So every time she posted something mean about these people and the other trolls went, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It was like everyone wishing you happy birthday on Facebook. Does that make sense? And she was very lonely in her own life. I can't remember the exact details. Like I said, you have to go and watch the video, but basically, she had some real troubles in her own life. She had some severe mental health problems. She was very lonely. I think her marriage ended up ending. She ended up in very difficult housing situations. She had some real difficulties in her life. And this trolling and getting this sort of positive affirmation from other trolls when she said mean things was one of the ways she made herself feel better. Now, that may not be an excuse, but understanding that reasoning behind why people might say mean things on the internet, I think can help for us to understand where people are coming from and to kind of feel that, hurt people. And I don't think anyone who is super happy and doing so well and loves their job and loves their lives and loves their partner and loves their kids and is going on these holidays and lives in an amazing house and just wakes up every morning and says, good morning, and is just the most happy, bright person, then goes on the internet and trolls anyone. I don't think that that's the case. I think someone maybe that from the outside looks like they have a good life, but is actually really unhappy in certain areas, may be a candidate for trolling. That's just from what I can assume, because I can't imagine really genuinely happy people taking time to write nasty comments on things online. I think it's a case of, I was talking to my best friend about this actually. Where's your kind of anger level at or your stress level at on a day-to-day basis? And she and I would say that we're like at a 1 or a 2, our stress levels are like 0, 1, 2, depending on the day. We're quite chilled. It takes quite a lot to make us quite angry and irate. So then if something severe happens, then obviously the anger scale goes up. So if someone, I think road rage is a good thing to be compared to it. If someone who's walking around like quite happy, happiness levels up at an 8, 9, 10 and anger levels at a 0, 1, 2, and someone drives past them like an idiot, they're not going to get out of the car and start screaming and shouting and banging on the windscreen, are they? Because the happiness levels up here and the, anger levels down here, they're pretty chill. However, if you're having a really bad day and everything's really stressful and you're really worried about money and you're really stressed about your job and you're really stressed about your marriage and you're really stressed about all these things, and then someone cuts you up, maybe they are the people that get out of the car and start screaming and shouting with road rage because it's enough to take them from a 9.5 to a 10 in the anger level. So I think this is just something to bear in mind. And it's not an excuse, and it's never an excuse to treat other humans badly. However, I think if you've ever received negative comments like this on your personal social media, on your work social media, or in real life, because there will always be some people that can generally dish it out but can't take it, would take terrible offense if anyone said awful things to them, but say awful things to other people. I think we all know that person. We all know that person. Just, you don't have to say who it is in the comments. Just, if you know one of those people, just put in the comments, I know one of those people. I think we all know one of those people. We really do. But I think if we can have that understanding of where they're coming from, maybe we won't feel so hurt, because maybe it's not about us. Maybe it's more about the person making those hurtful comments. So back to a lot of the stuff that was said. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've just said was said to me in comments yesterday, in DMs, in response to that comment that I shared, that I was discussing at some length, but just not as much length as I'm discussing right now. But so many parents of additional needs children feel so judged. They feel judged. These are the things I'm hearing, and these are the things I understand because I felt them too. They feel judged by friends and family who don't understand. Why would you want to push for an assessment? Why would you want to label your child? Newsflash, labeling your child is not a tattoo on their forehead. It is just understanding what is going on anyway And you can choose to do what you will with that label in inverted commas. You can choose to do nothing with that diagnosis until action is required. And then maybe when perhaps they move to a different school, they move further up and they need extra support, you have that evidence to show that your child needs that and you're able to get that for them. You can choose to get them that help they need now. You can choose to share it with everyone you know. You can choose to share it with nobody, but at least you have that understanding and you're able to kind of be equipped to know what your child's needs are and how to parent them accordingly. So it's not labeling your child like it's some bad thing. They're not going to be branded with anything. And it's just discovering what is already there and going on. And I think there's so much value in understanding ourselves and therefore your children understanding themselves as they grow up, but like understanding basic things like I learn better by listening to things or I learn better by reading things. If you know those, like how your learning preference is, you're going to do better when you are trying to learn and absorb information for tests or whatever it might be. And having your child assessed is just an extension of that, really. It's just knowing how their minds work and how they need to be supported or not. Because one of the, I think the hardest things that parents of children with additional needs who have not yet been assessed find is the self-doubt, should I be doing this? Oh, hang on, is it all in my head? Oh no, it's definitely not in my head. Oh, actually, I'm sure I'm imagining this, it's all in my head. And we've all been there on that back and forth, and it's exhausting. And at least by having definitive answers, we know that we're doing the best we can and we know that we're doing the quote unquote right thing as best we can. But having that assessment can really help us to know if at least we're on the right path, because I think so many parents just feel constantly like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Spoiler alert, if you're worrying, like, am I a good mum? Am I doing the right thing? Chances are you're a good mum because it means you're doing your best, okay? Just as a little aside. But yes, so all of these parents of children with additional needs in my DMs just saying that they have all felt judged. They have all felt like people don't understand them. They've all had people make really inappropriate comments, mostly to their faces, which actually is probably harder than dealing with some random internet comment. They've all had dreadful things said, some by health professionals, some by teachers, by other parents, by family members, a lot by family members actually. A lot of the dreadful comments have come from family members, which is sad, and also very difficult to deal with because that's someone in your immediate family that you're having to manage their comments, and I'm sure that comes with a lot more weighted emotion. So if you've had to deal with that, I just want to give you a big internet hug, a big internet hug. So what is the answer? I mean, what is the answer? What's the point of all this? I think the point of all this is that in discussing things and bringing them into the light, it can help so many people in so many ways. So if listening to this has helped you at all because it's made you feel less alone, then that's worthwhile. If that's made one person feel less alone, then that's been worthwhile. If it's made one person think before they speak or think, oh, maybe it wasn't really appropriate to say that thing I said before, and maybe next time I'll think a little bit more, then that's been worthwhile. But really, I guess the biggest one is, why did I bring it up? Why did I bring it up at all when normally I just block and delete trolling comments? Because that's the policy. And like, no, it's not helpful, block and delete. Why am I bringing this up? And I think it's just because it goes so much deeper than this one comment. It's because we're just all only seeing a snapshot of anybody's lives. Like I said, real life, online, all of it. It's only just a snapshot. It's only what people are choosing to share with you. And if we can keep that in mind, it can help us in so many different ways. So it can help us think, okay, well, maybe we need to be understanding. Maybe that person that is being perhaps difficult and not very nice is going through a really tough time. Maybe they need a hug. Maybe that's the answer. And maybe if we could all be a little bit more open-minded and understanding, then that would help. And maybe the other reason I talk about it is I think the more that children of parents with additional needs can speak openly about the difficulties that entire community faces, then perhaps we will ultimately deal with less prejudice, less judgment, less they don't look like, they need that. Less of it will happen if it's all discussed openly. I think that's why I wanted to talk about autism and things on my channels. It was like a twofold thing, really. It was to help people, to help younger me, really, to help people that were going through what I was going through, just a few steps behind, because I really would have appreciated someone sharing that information with me. So if I could make someone else's journey just a little bit easier, a little bit more smooth, then I feel that's worthwhile. But also by discussing it and raising awareness, then more people can just be more understanding. So maybe some people will notice things in their own children and things will be picked up and dealt with earlier and they'll have an easier time. And I know that is the case. I get messages all the time saying, after watching your videos, I start to think about my own child. And since then, they've had an assessment. And since then, our lives have been so much easier. And I'm so glad that that has helped. And just maybe even people that don't have their lives touched with children with additional needs, which I'm going to guess it's rare that no one's lives are touched with children with additional needs at all, because I think you're always going to know someone. It's going to, if it's not your child, it would be someone in your family or one of your children's friends or whatever. So it's helpful for us all to have a certain level of that understanding, because even if our children aren't affected by it, then there will be some of our children's friends that are. Just statistically, I guess that's going to be true. So this was not the podcast I was intending to record today. Felt quite heavy, actually, didn't it? Sorry if that was not that wasn't the plan. It wasn't supposed to be heavy, but I hope that it has been valuable in some way. I'm now going to go and edit videos for my main channel. I'm going to go and edit a grocery haul. Actually, I haven't done one of those in a long time. But if you want to know all about that, then you can head over to my main channel, and that's Mummy of 4 UK, and find out why I wasn't doing them, why I stopped doing them, why I started doing them again, and why I had massive imposter syndrome about that, actually. So maybe that's a future podcast episode where we'll cover imposter syndrome, because I think that is something that touches a lot of our lives. So thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk with Rhi. Rate and review if you're listening on your podcast subscriber platform. I don't even know what it's called, clearly I'm running out of words now. And if you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, share, comment, all those lovely YouTubey things, or check out my Patreon for some early release content from my other channels on the podcast too. Thanks so much for watching, guys.